Just look at the data. $7 trillion invested every year in nature negative. Harmful subsidized 1.7 trillion, which is including carbon-centered solution, by the way. And green infrastructure, concrete wall, seawall, flood wall, dams, dikes, $0.5 trillion. For nature-based solution, which means nature-positive solution, only $0.2 trillion invested. So global-wise, we have no hope if we follow the same track. Mitigation, building more and more wind turbines, solar panels. They look green, but not necessarily sustainable. In America alone, every year, wind turbine kill 5 million birds alone, not to count other parts of the world. Hydropower, is it green? Nonsense. Totally unsustainable. Look at this. Solar panels. What about 20 years later? Are you going to treat this? What I can do with the garbage? Adaptation. $1.7 trillion invested from World Bank, from AIIB, as I mentioned. These are the solutions we're still building wall in Malaysia, in Indonesia, trying to protect the city from being flooded. We're still building wall in India, like that, canalizing the river, build higher and higher dams, aqueduct, very myopic. They will fail, and they fail disastrously. Last year they fell in Kenya, this year they fell in Brazil, in China. It keeps failing, right? So that's in China. The dark secret of this kind of solution is that there are only two kinds of levees. Those that have failed and those that are going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the engineers doing every year, every day. Meanwhile, they produce 8% of carbon emissions, right? 8% minimum. Keep doing, right? So we are talking about nature-based solution. Plant a tree, restore wetland. All these are nature-based solutions. But we only have $0.2 trillion. So we are the key. We cannot just plant trees. Trees need soil. Soil need water, right? So everywhere is nature. So where is the key? That's what we have to solve the problem. Why and how the conventional green infrastructure failed? Look at when they first invented this kind of, we call it industrialized facility, industrialized infrastructure. They invented it in this part of the world, the European part of the world. Very mild climate, very comfortable climate. Precipitation every year, the same, almost the same, every month the same. That's why our concrete, our pipes works, right? 5 inches precipitation maximum. But they fail today in New York because climate change. But this kind of failure is minor, okay? It's just about comfortability. But for the other part of the world, it's dramatic. It's a disaster. It's an issue of survival. But all these countries, all these cities, copying the same kind of infrastructure. We call it green infrastructure. And they're basically colonized by this technology. Okay, cultural, technologically colonized everywhere. Jakarta, Bangkok, China, Sao Paulo, Mexico, everywhere. 80% of the global south actually is the same infrastructure, but facing totally different kind of climate. We call it monsoon-like climate. Flood, drought, everywhere. That's right. That's the survival issue. Beyond that, it's not just a local flood. We all talking about the climate, global warming. But don't forget, more than 40% of the water coming to sea that cause sea level rising is being squeezed from the land itself. The depletion of groundwater, the drainage of flood, the disappear of wetland. So if we can keep the water on the land, filling the aquifer, we might be able to solve the problem of sea level rising, at least 50%, right? The rest of them come from ice cap or whatever, or thermal expansion. But the mass, in terms of mass, 45% water come from the mass management, the mass up of the global surface, which we call the landscape. By the way, we'll talk about carbon that's cause of global warming. But actually water can be the more important factors, right? Certainly carbon, but water we almost forget because it's not been built into the climate change model yet. So the key to solve the global climate issue is land-based, water-driven solution. That's the landscape. That's the landscape agriculture. So what is the key? That's why we need a new solution, global solution, which I call Sponge Planet, an upgraded version of Sponge City. It is a land-based, water-driven, holistic solution. Sounds very, normal to you guys here. Water, of course, important. But remember, today, the solutions are totally opposite. We accumulate water by building dams. We speed away, we drain away. There's a flood, speed up by channels, by concrete. We build high walls to try to protect the city from being flooded, called boxing, fighting against water. Totally opposite. Sponge Planet idea is to return water at the source, through the water flow, and embrace water at the sink. So it's a new infrastructure, a new civilization. Because the city is built on civilization. The city is a symbol of civilization. And this civilization built on infrastructure based on this kind of technology. So the new technology is nature-based. And certainly across the scale, planetary scale, from national, planetary scale, to regional, to local, and certainly to the specific site, to project, simple project. So this is the design, this is the planning. We call it landscape planning. I have to come back and refer to Dirk's wonderful talk. It's a planetary thinking. Imagination. Imagine the whole world is our battlefield. But where's the technology? We certainly have very primitive nature-based technology, which is we call agriculture. Right? It's very, we have 10,000 years agricultural history, nature-based. But those are very inefficient, primitive. Then we replace it. We colonize those with we call efficient industrial technology. Sewage treatment system, industrialized concrete steel pipe system. We call it industrial civilization. So the next civilization will be nature-based ecological infrastructure. That will define our new city, new civilization. Now that starts with landscape. Inspirations come from monsoon culture. Remember, the most part of the world is actually under influence already for hundreds of thousand years. This kind of climate change experience. Like the farmers, these are Chinese farmers, terracing the slope up on the mountain, 2,000 meters above sea level, and cultivating the marsh on the delta area by pounding, diking, and terracing, islanding. We create a sustainable living environment for hundreds of thousands of years. And look at the cities. Certainly we can live with water. We did a study of 100 cities. That's the 200 years of flood and drought in Yellow River Basin. The city can be like that. Of course, we have here in Europe, built a city in the sea, right? So Venice. Certainly, these kind of cities. But those certainly we call it fairly primitive, nature-based solution. We have new technology. We have new science now. So we need to just upgrade those nature-based primitive technology to synthesize it and to upgrade those to develop replicable landscape model that can be operated at larger scale, global scale, planetary scale. Now that's what I did in the past almost 30 years. Simple, dirty earthman like terracing, weiring, diking and ponding, islanding, and transforms global service at speed and fast and inexpensive. So that's what we did for 28 years. We built 1,000 projects in China, more than 200 cities in China. For example, number one principle, retention. This is in Hainan Island. Map out, analyze where's water needed. Water is not greedy. We only need 1% of space for water, global-wise. Why you can't fight with water? The same with fire, of course. So develop this space to water. And whenever water and the human cities conflict, those are the areas we need to fix it. We could eco-puncture, acupuncture, minimal intervention, and certainly use very simple tools. Terracing, ponding, islanding, modular technique, and it can be operated by one machine. That's one machine you can transform the whole global service. It's about 1 square kilometer in size, and it can be built in 1 year. 2 years later, we have beautiful sponge landscape that is resilient to flood, the drought, and certainly beautiful, right? Before species of birds come into the city, just because this part. As I said, we use no labor, no skilled labor. So the army have to do the work. There is COVID. 1 year, okay? 1 year to build, almost. Altogether 18 months. So that's a simple solution. The same, I just want to show you this example. It's an ash dump, a former polluted fish farm. We mix the dirt, the clay with the ash and create island. Meanwhile, create a lake, a sponge system that can regulate stormwater. The dry season, the flood season, 1 million to 2 million cubic meter of water can be retained in this park, right in the middle of the city. Before it was a suburb, now becomes the center of the city. As a forest above the water, multifunctional. The stormwater being cleansed, nutrients being removed, and birds come into the city, people play, immersive experience, cool off, biodiverse, certainly beautiful. Right? So even sailing here, shopping in the park now become a beautiful place for people. Certainly for everyone, accessible for everyone, any kind of people. Right? So that's certainly is also design, which means we need a new language. All the material, all the facilities can be easily washed, clean when get flooded. So it's become more resilient and easy to manage. That's all made of aluminum. The second principle is to slow down, totally against the conventional green infrastructure. Slow down the water. That's the key also. So that's a site, that's a city, about 1 million people, right? Channelized, drain away the water, polluted, use concrete. The solution is dechannelize it, naturalize it, turn gray into green, remove all the concrete, rediscover the flow of water and see where they can stop. So think like water. Imagine how water flow, how water stay as before and as after. Only 1 year being execution in 1 year. Now this is today's landscape. Certainly a new city being catalyst to build around this beautiful park. And we have performance tests. Reduce flood, increase biodiversity, and certainly people love it. So green to green means a new civilization, a new technology, new infrastructure. Now this is another case. We need to do systematically. The whole infrastructure must be replaced. That's in high coal. Conventional solution for 20 years, the government trying to fix it. Pollution, higher and higher flood wall, higher and higher concrete investment. Now, get rid of it. Totally remove all the concrete. That's it. That's what we did. The whole river, 20 kilometers long, running through the city. Terrace it. Remove all the concrete, recycle it, and clean the water run off from the city. Recover the habitat. And by the way, because some urban villages, the sewage, they cannot connect the centralized sewage system. So we just connect the sewage system into the park. We create a sewage treatment system here in the park. And be filtered, certainly be tested, healthy enough for people to use. And here, very simple. Dechannelization or deindustrialization. Upgrade version first to version second, 2.0. That's today's river. That's today's recycled concrete turning into island. And that's the sewage treatment system. Nature, powerful nature. Make use of it. And that's the clean water runoff. Look at this. These are clean water. There's dirty water above. Every day, 1 hectare of the land can clean up to 800 tons or 800 cubic meters of dirty water, gray water into clean water. Can be very safe, swimmable water. Beautiful, certainly. Now that all have also performance test. 85% of the nitrogen and phosphorus and even toxicant material can be removed by the natural process. The third principle, embrace water. Don't boxing with water. Yeah, play tidy with water. That's our river. That's the river flooded every year and decayed, ecologically degraded. As today we recovered only 1 year's work. As was before, you can see erosion, invasive of exotic species, and certainly not beautiful. So terracing, islanding, ponding, and created floodable landscape, right? You just created a skywalk system above it, above the canopy, allow 4 meters of flood, 4 meters minimum intervention. During flood season, every year they have flood. The monsoon season, after flood, because the monsoon is only 1 week, heavy flood. The rest of it, 90% of the time, people can use it. Live with water. Water can be friendly. And certainly, global-wise, as we mentioned, we have dumped so much concrete, and we'll keep dumping. Imagine only, 80% of the global surface is underdeveloped. So we are developing. It's developing in India, it's developing in Africa, in America, South America. We can dump all the concrete again. We need a new solution. So this solution is landscape-based solution. That's the seawall in Sanya, a tropical island. Sea level rise in China is 3 millimeter every year here. So they build higher and higher wall try to protect the city from get flooded. So our solution, which I am so happy I have convinced the mayor to demolish the wall. That's make use of nature. To let nature come in, right? To play tai chi with nature, as I said. That's the site. That's the seawall, you see? They're going to build a seawall all the way, right? On construction. So we remove it, right? Let water come in. When water comes in and been twisted and played slowly, it becomes friendly. As today, 1 year built, and beautifully, so mangrove come into it, birds come into it, and certainly always have people here, and all of them oasis in created. We have to think big, right? Just mention the planetary scale. The seawall like that, miles, right? This is the seawall in Hainan Island. They just built in 2016. Look at what they do. What will happen when they build a seawall? Above, without seawall, large vegetation, right? Large vegetation, mangroves, everything. You build a seawall, you kill everything, right? Why? Because you have seawall, the wave flip over with salt, stay and kill the vegetation, kill everything. Why don't create the breathing seawall? So that's what we did. We chop off the seawall, keep the base, of course, it's here, and make it permeable. So let the water come back to the ocean, create a horizontal seawall. Conventional seawall will not last maybe 50 years or collapse 10 years. In New Orleans, when you collapse, 1,000 people die. Right? Here is the coast, 2009. The seawall being flipped over by the ocean, 60 people died, right? In France, right? So instead of keep building higher and higher seawall, which accumulate higher and higher risk, we reduce risk. Build a landscape wall, resilient, horizontal wall, integrating with, that's before, with landscape. Right? That's a seawall. Right? Because the sea, the problem is not sea level rising. The problem is the surge which can be 10 meters high. You can never build a seawall 10 meters high because another surge will come up 12 meters high. Right? That will cause disaster. So this horizontal seawall will create beautiful, romantic coastline. Trees love it, right? People love it. And certainly sponge, it becomes sponge. And that's another transforming surrounding fish pond into the whole area. The whole area for the city, you can see become resilient seawall, breathing seawall. Now it's been tested. Last year, a huge storm. The conventional seawall collapsed. And our seawall survived. Right? Survive and largely, right? Compassion. Now, I have to introduce my friend Fabrice Lieber. Just an hour away from here, it's the same idea, sponge idea. He recovers the whole valley as artist. We need imagination. Imagine the whole world is a sponge wrapped in the water that can recover the planet in just 25 years, right? Ever here. It recovers the whole valley, become forest. Right? I was there just 2 days ago. Right? Beginning from seed, and come back with seed. Fruit. Beautiful. As his imagination, sponge, whole planet can be sponge. That cool off the planet, recover habitat, and become beautiful. So that's my imagination also. We need a sponge planet recovered, but a very simple tool, right? Very simple tool, beginning with ground earth. turning our watershed, turning our farm, turn our city into sponge. And eventually, we create a sponge planet. It's inexpensive. If 8 billion people would act together, we might be able to solve the problem immediately, in 5 or 10 years maybe. Now that's imagination. So thanks to IFLA, we have created this working group called Sponge Planet Working Group. Join us, the water security and management. Thank you.